Okay, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to my channel. Yeah, welcome back to another, fuck, I don't know why I did that. We're watching Daily Lore. We're continuing to react, mobile react, obviously. Um, I don't know what I want to say now, but this is mainly for mobile phones. I mean, you could probably watch it on TV, but I wouldn't really recommend it because I don't know if it looks good or not. I've never actually tried to watch it on TV, so I don't know how it looks. Probably doesn't look that good because you have to have your phone uh, portrait mode vertical to actually watch it. Because I know I've watched Reddit before on my TV, and it's different. So yeah, now we're going to this one. This is
Have
how
you
long
heard?
is this?
Reading glasses are outdated. A new technology for the elderly. Nothingness is here.
Returned 5 years later,
This is 17 minutes. This is gonna take a while. This is gonna be another 40-minute video, somewhere around there.
expecting to pick up where we left off, only to find me married to his brother who stepped up, and now he's having a meltdown. I, 35F, never imagined
Honestly, hold up. Let me go back.
my husband of 8 years disappeared with all our money while I was in the hospital giving birth to our twins, then returned 5 years later expecting to pick up where we left off, only to find me married to his brother who stepped up, and
I mean, the first part sounds terrible. Like that's bad for the husband, obviously. But the second part, married to his brother. What? That's weird. But obviously, I haven't listened to it. That's just the first. I mean, just by reading it, that's just weird. But I don't know. Something might have happened. Okay, let's go.
now he's having a meltdown. I, 35F, never imagined my life would take such a dramatic turn, but here I am, caught in a situation that feels like it's straight out of a soap opera. 5 years ago, my then husband Mark, 38M, disappeared during what should have been the happiest moment of our lives. Now he's back,
Also, sorry if you hear me breathing. I don't really. I have headphones in, and obviously, yeah.
and I don't know how to handle the chaos he's bringing with him. Mark and I were married for 8 years and had been trying to have children for the last 3 of those years. After multiple rounds of fertility treatments, we were overjoyed to discover I was pregnant with twins.
Finally.
The pregnancy was difficult. I had severe morning sickness throughout, developed gestational diabetes, and was eventually put on bed rest for the final 2 months.
I don't know that.
Through it all, Mark seemed supportive, though in hindsight, there were signs that something was off. He had become more secretive about his phone, working late hours, and had several unexplained absences that he brushed off as work stress. I was so focused on the pregnancy that I didn't pay enough attention to these red flags. I trusted him
That makes
completely.
sense.
After all, we had been together for a decade, married for 8 years, and were about to become parents together. When I went into labor at 36 weeks, Mark drove me to the hospital and stayed during the early stages. Then, he said he needed to go home quickly to get some things we'd forgotten in our rush to get to the hospital. He kissed me, promised to be back soon.
This is where he does his disappearing act. Why am I not full screen? I have no idea. This is where he does disappearing act right here. That's crazy. 8 years together. I know it says right there, but whatever. 8 years together. That is a long time with somebody. With another person. 8 years is not a long time, but it's a long time in the sense if you're living with somebody else. By yourself, 8 years is not that long. But living with somebody else and being married with somebody else, that's a long time. There's like, it's a difference between being alone and being with somebody.
And walked out the door. That was the last time I saw him, until 5 years later. As my labor progressed and Mark didn't return, I became increasingly worried. I called him repeatedly, but his phone went straight to voicemail. I asked the nurses to call our home, but there was no answer. My doctor suggested I focus on the delivery, assuring me that Mark was probably stuck in traffic or his phone had died. By the time my beautiful twin boys were born after 18 grueling hours of labor, There was still no sign of Mark. In the haze of post-delivery exhaustion and the joy of meeting my sons, I tried to convince myself that there must be a reasonable explanation.
Yeah,
Perhaps he'd been in an
I don't think there's a
accident?
reason
But
on
calls to
this.
local hospitals turned up nothing. I asked a nurse to contact the police, who said I needed to wait 24 hours before filing a missing person report. The reality of Mark's disappearance only fully hit me when I was preparing to be discharged from the hospital. My parents had come to help, and I broke down in tears as I realized I didn't even know if I still had a home to go to. Mark handled all our finances, and I had been on unpaid maternity leave for the last 2 months of my high-risk pregnancy. My worst fears were confirmed when my father drove to our house. It appeared normal from the outside, but when we got inside, Mark's clothes, personal items, and laptop were
Everything
gone.
is gone.
A visit to our bank the next day revealed the devastating truth. Our joint savings account had been completely empty 3 days before I went into labor. Our checking account had the bare minimum left.
I guess cold feet. Yeah. That's what I'm just guessing. I'm not 100% sure, or maybe I know this sounds terrible, but cold feet. I mean, it's terrible to do that on your wife. That's delivering. That's bad. That's seriously bad. But cold feet, maybe some sort of trouble. I don't know.
Just enough to avoid automatic account closure. Even more shocking, our home equity line of credit had been maxed out. In the span of a week, Mark had methodically drained nearly $178,000 from our accounts and disappeared. I filed a police report, but they classified it as a domestic matter since there was no evidence of foul play. Mark had legally accessed accounts he was named on. They suggested I consult a divorce attorney. The bank was sympathetic but explained that because Mark was an authorized account holder, they couldn't classify it as theft. In the midst of this nightmare,
That's
with
true.
newborn twins and no income, Mark's brother James, 35M, became my unexpected salvation. James and I had always gotten along well, but we weren't particularly close. He was the first person to show up at the hospital after hearing about Mark's disappearance, bringing newborn supplies and offering to help in any way he could. James was furious with his brother and immediately stepped up in ways I never expected. He helped me navigate the legal process of getting child support established, although we had no way to collect it since Mark had vanished, assisted me in applying for emergency assistance programs, and even co-signed a lease for a small apartment when I had to sell our house to pay off debts Mark had left behind. Over the next few months, as I adjusted to life as a single mother of
Interesting.
twins while trying to rebuild my career, James became my rock. He would watch the boys so I could go on job interviews, brought dinner over several times a week, and never once made me feel like a charity case. He treated my sons, his nephews, with genuine love and devotion. James was the polar
Like he
opposite of
should.
Mark. Where Mark had been
Honestly.
charming but ultimately selfish, James was quietly dependable. Where Mark made grand gestures but disappeared when things got tough, James showed up consistently without fanfare. For the first year, our relationship was purely supportive friendship. I was still legally married to his brother, still processing the trauma of abandonment and focused entirely on survival and my children. As the twins turned 2, something shifted between us. James had been such a constant presence in our lives that the boys had started calling him Dada without any prompting. The first time it happened, we both froze, unsure how to respond.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, even without teaching your kids how to speak, they would naturally speak whenever they can. By influence of watching things, listening to things, it would naturally happen. Usually, I don't know, I'm not a kid's psychologist or whatever it's called, but I think it's like it might happen faster if you actually try to coach them, I guess. I don't know, that's not the right saying or the right phrasing, but basically what you're doing and just repeating what word you want them to say. But they would naturally talk by watching, listening to things, listening to you. They would just naturally say it, which makes sense. But this is awkward. But I guess I think she's developing a crush on him. Because being around somebody that for that long that helps you, Yeah, I feel like you would definitely have some sort of feelings you might not know that are there, but come on, you just don't want to admit it.
Later that night, after the boys were asleep, we had a long, honest conversation about our feelings. James admitted he had developed deep feelings for me but had been fighting them out of respect for my situation and fear of complicating our friendship. I was terrified of trusting anyone again, but I couldn't deny that I had also developed feelings for James. We decided to move forward cautiously, always putting the boys' well-being first. After consulting with an attorney, I filed for divorce on grounds of abandonment, and after the required waiting period, the divorce was.
That makes sense. That's exactly what you should do. Abandonment. I don't know what that legally means. Well, I mean, obviously, abandonment. Of course, it's right in the name. But I don't know what that. I don't know what's the difference between abandonment and just a normal divorce. It's probably in the name, like it says, abandonment. The person leaves you for X amount of years, I guess.
Granted in my favor. James and I dated officially for another year before he proposed. Our wedding was small and meaningful, just close family and friends who had supported us through the darkest times. James legally adopted the twins, who were now.
Okay, so the family understands. Okay, I kind of get it now. It was less weird. Like I said before, I didn't know the story. It's less weird, more understandable. I get it. I mean, honestly, I feel like his brother is a better version of the other guy, which makes sense. Some some brothers are like that.
4 and had no memory of Mark. We bought a modest home together, and for the first time since Mark's disappearance, I felt like I could breathe again. We had created a stable, loving family from the ashes of betrayal.
Nope.
Then, 3 weeks ago, Mark reappeared as suddenly as he had vanished. I was at work when I received a call from our daycare provider, saying that a man claiming to be the twins' biological father was demanding to see them. Thankfully, she had refused and called me immediately. I called James in a panic, then the police, and rushed to the daycare. By the time I arrived, Mark had left, but he had shown the daycare provider his ID and old photos of me and him together. She apologized profusely, explaining that she hadn't known about our history since the children had only ever known James as their father.
Do you wake up with pain in your lower back, hip,
Honestly.
knee, or sciatica? Then you need to know about.
No.
Since the children had only ever known James as their father. That evening, Mark showed up at our home. I was simultaneously furious, terrified, and in shock. The man standing on my porch looked both familiar and like a stranger. 5 years had aged him, his once dark hair now had streaks of gray, and his face was more lined.
I forget if they told us how old he was. They might have, I don't know. Maybe it was stress. That's the reason because stress is a major factor of why you get gray hairs or white hairs.
But his demeanor was what truly shocked me. He acted as if he had just been away on a long trip, not as if he had abandoned his pregnant wife and stolen their life savings. When I didn't immediately invite him in, he seemed genuinely surprised. "Aren't you happy to see me?" he asked, as if his return was cause for celebration rather than trauma. I told him to leave or I would call the police. He reluctantly left, but not before saying he would be back to meet his sons. The next day, I received an email from Mark explaining his version of events. According to him, he had experienced a mental health crisis when faced with the imminent responsibility of fatherhood. He claimed he had intended to just take a short break to clear his head, but then had been too ashamed to return after the first few days passed. He said he had spent the last 5 years in South America, finding himself and building a business that had become successful enough for him to make things right. There was no acknowledgement of the devastation he had caused, no genuine apology for abandoning me during childbirth or.
So you're uh, so you what? Let's see. Let me get this right. You abandon your wife that's giving birth to move to probably you didn't know where at the time, or maybe you did, to move to South America, made a business with the money you stole, and now you're coming back after 5 years and acting like nothing happened. That is arrogant. I don't know. I think that's the right word.
Stealing our money. Instead, he wrote about how much he had grown as a person and was now ready to be the father his children deserved. The most shocking part was his assumption that he could simply walk back into our lives and claim his place. Since then, Mark has been relentless. He's contacted my parents, mutual friends, and even my employer, trying to gather information about me and the twins. He's left expensive gifts on our porch with notes addressed to his sons. He's sent emails with links to legal websites about biological father's rights. James has been incredibly supportive but is understandably worried. He is legally the twins' father now, having adopted them with no objection since Mark was unreachable at the time. Our attorney has assured us that Mark has no legal right to the children, having abandoned them at birth and made no attempt at contact for 5 years, but the emotional turmoil has
Okay, yeah. I was about to say that I'm kind of confused, but yeah, that makes sense actually. Because he's even though he's a biological father, he really has no rights. He has no rights at all. He hasn't seen them in 5 years, ever since they were born. Well, he never seen them when they were born. Basically, he's never seen them at all. So I mean, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I gotcha. I was wondering, but then I realized, yeah, he adopted them. So obviously, when somebody adopts somebody, that there's no original father. I think I don't really know how that works, but yeah.
Appearance has caused his immense. Last week, things escalated when Mark approached the twins at a park while my mother was watching them. He introduced himself as their real dad and tried to take photos with them. The boys, confused and upset by this stranger's claims, ran to my mother in tears. When she confronted him, he accused her of alienating his children from him. After this incident, we obtained a temporary restraining order, but Mark seems undeterred. He's now telling mutual acquaintances that James stole his family while he was struggling with mental health issues. Some people who don't know the full story.
Right, mental health issues. Right, you have mental health issues that you moved to South America, stole all the money, and build a business from nothing. That sounds right, right? You definitely have mental health issues. Sure, I guess. I don't think mental health issues actually count if you're purposely taking all the money from your joint account, from the house equity. I don't think that's a mental issue case right there. That's deliberate, whatever the word is, deliberate and intentional. You purposely did that. So, I mean, that's not a mental health thing. Mental health thing you don't have any control over. I mean, you do, but you don't.
Have actually reached out to express sympathy for Mark, suggesting that I should at least let him meet the children properly. What these well-meaning but misguided individuals don't understand is that Mark isn't just some absent father who regrets missing time with his kids. He is a man who deliberately abandoned his heavily pregnant wife, stole their life savings, and disappeared for 5 years without a word about whether he was even alive. He left me to give birth alone, with no home, no money, and no support system beyond the kindness of family and friends. The twins are now 5 years old and have only ever known James as their father. He's the one who attended every pediatrician appointment, stayed up with them when they were sick, taught them to ride bikes, and read them bedtime stories every night. Introducing Mark as their real father would only confuse and upset them. Yesterday, I received a formal letter from an attorney Mark has hired, requesting mediation to establish a
You don't have to do this. Like, I mean, they could, yes, he's the biological father, but he doesn't have any rights because he hasn't seen them or ever heard of them, or even though he doesn't even know the names of his kids. So he doesn't have any rights at all. So obviously, yes, there's probably some legal way you could do it, but honestly, there really is nothing this guy could do.
visitation schedule. The letter implied that if we don't agree to mediation, he would pursue his parental rights through the courts. Our
Yeah,
attorney is
no.
confident that any judge would rule in our favor given the circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if any judge rules in this circumstance, oh my God, I don't know. I don't know what kind of judge you are. I don't know where the fuck you got. I don't know how the hell you became a judge. No offense, but shit. Listening to this case and you come to that conclusion.
Stances, but the prospect of a legal battle is daunting. James and I are united in our determination to protect our family, but this situation has reopened wounds I thought had healed long ago. I find myself plagued by questions. Why come back now? What does he really want?
Maybe his business failed. And that's why he's back. Or maybe he had a relationship as well when he left. He had a relationship in South America. And they moved there, but that relationship never actually worked out. And then he realized what he was missing. So he tried to come back. Something theory.
Is this genuinely about wanting to know his biological children, or is it about his ego, unable to accept that we've built a happy life without him? The most difficult part is explaining this situation to friends and family who keep suggesting that I should forgive Mark for the sake of the children. They don't seem to understand that this isn't about my unwillingness to forgive, it's about protecting my children from a man who has demonstrated profound selfishness and untrustworthiness. Even if I could have.
I mean, even if you forgive him, it's not like the kids don't even know him. They don't know him at all. And yes, it would be complicated to introduce him as a father figure. Yes, you could introduce him as like a friend or whatever. As they get older, you could just tell them the truth that this is your father. But that's still complicated, honestly.
Eventually forgive Mark for what he did to me. How can I trust him not to hurt the twins when he's already shown he's capable of abandoning his family without a second thought? I'm caught in a nightmare I never expected to face. How do I protect my children from the biological father who abandoned them while being fair and ethical about their right to eventually know their origins? How do I handle the people who think I'm being vindictive rather than protective? And how do we move forward as a family with this shadow hanging over us? Update, 3 months later.
Honestly, some people just don't think. Honestly, they probably is thinking about a family. That's what they're doing. They're not thinking about it logically. They're thinking about it emotionally, which, like I said before, emotion is good in some scenarios, but logic actually trumps over emotion pretty much most of the time. Uh, Emotion actually sometimes trump over logic in some scenarios, but with family, emotions like it's too high in families. That's why logic is way better than emotion inside of a family case. In this case, other-
Fair and ethical about their right to eventually know their origins. How do I handle the people who think I'm being vindictive rather than protective? And how do we move?
in this case, the people that are, the family members or the friends, the ones that thinking she's vindictive or they are vindictive, they are just thinking about it emotionally. A father that is gone for 5 years finally is coming back, wanting to be in this kid's life. That sounds good. Like when you put it like that, that sounds good. But if you actually looking deeper, the guy that left his wife in the hospital, giving birth to his family, taking 170 something thousand dollars, moving to South America and coming back 5 years later, wanting a relationship with his kids, is now back in the picture, wanting to meet his kids. That sounds terrible. So yeah, no, just no. That's just dumb. And obviously, I think it's like I said before. You could introduce him as like a friend or like an uncle or something like that. Uh, but I feel like that's complicated as well, because then you're going to eventually tell them that this is your father.
Forward as a family with this shadow hanging over us. Update, 3 months later. First, I want to thank everyone for the overwhelming support and advice on my original post. Your perspectives helped me navigate one of the most challenging periods of my life with more clarity and confidence. The past 3 months have been intense, but I'm cautiously optimistic that we're moving toward resolution. Here's what's happened since my last post. After receiving the letter from Mark's attorney, James and I consulted with our own lawyer and decided to respond with a clear, documented timeline of Mark's abandonment and the steps we had taken to establish stability for the twins. We included financial records showing the emptied accounts, police reports from when he disappeared, and documentation of James's legal adoption of the children. Our attorney suggested we offer a structured, therapeutic approach rather than simply refusing all contact. This wasn't because Mark deserved it, but because it would demonstrate our reasonableness to the court if things escalated. We proposed that Mark would need to undergo a psychological evaluation and complete a parenting course, participate in therapy sessions alone first, then joint sessions with us, return at least 50% of the money he took when he left, agree to supervised visits only, beginning with brief sessions in a therapeutic setting. We expected Mark to reject these terms outright, but surprisingly, he agreed to all of them except returning the money. He claimed he had invested it in building a future for his family and no longer had access to those specific funds. Our attorney advised that pursuing the financial aspect might complicate the more important issue of protecting the children, so we reluctantly set that aside for now. The psychological evaluation was revealing. While the specifics are confidential, our attorney was allowed to tell us that the psychologist identified significant narcissistic traits and recommended therapy to address Mark's difficulty understanding how his actions affect others. The report questioned his sudden interest in fatherhood after years of absence, suggesting it might be more about his self-image.
Interesting. Okay, we're gonna learn about his. I hope no, we won't. Dang it, I want to learn about him.
Than genuine concern for the twins' well-being. Meanwhile, we sought advice from a child psychologist about if and how to introduce the concept of Mark to the twins. She advised that at 5 years old, they're still too young to fully understand the complex situation, but suggested we begin using age-appropriate language to introduce the concept that families come in many forms, and that James became their daddy because he chose them and loves them, even though they grew in my tummy with help from someone else. The most surprising development came during our first joint therapy session with Mark. When the therapist asked him to articulate why he wanted relationship with the twins after 5 years of no contact, he struggled to provide specific reasons beyond "they're my kids, and I have a right." When pressed about what he knew about them, their personalities, interests, needs, or even basic information like favorite colors or foods, he knew nothing. The therapist gently but firmly explained that parenthood is about the children's needs, not the adult's desires, and asked Mark to consider what the twins needed right now. For perhaps the first time, Mark seemed genuinely taken aback, as if this perspective had never occurred to him. After that session, Mark requested a
Oh shit. It's not all about me? I thought it was. Like, what the fuck? Some people are just. Some people are beyond help, and some people are helpful. You could help them, but it's very hard to help them, though.
private meeting with James and me, without lawyers or therapists. Though apprehensive, we agreed. What happened next was unexpected. Mark admitted that returning to find me married to his brother had been a significant blow to his ego. He said he had fantasized about returning as a successful businessman to the grateful family waiting for him, only to discover we had not just survived but thrived without him. He revealed that his successful business in South America had actually failed 6 months ago, which prompted his return to the States. He had come back expecting to reclaim his old life, only to find it irrevocably changed. His pursuit of parental rights.
It's 5 years, my dude. 5 years is a long time as well. In the sense of a lot of shit could happen within 5 years. I mean, I know I said 5 years, 8 years is not that long, but in the sense of like something happening between two people, that's a long time. You could get married within 3 years, and within 5 years, you could have kids. That's how short of 5 years is. That's how long 5 years is. But that's how also short 5 years is as well. In the sense of time. In the sense of years. It's just short amount of time. But it's a long time with somebody else.
Had been largely driven by resentment rather than genuine desire to be a father. This moment of honesty, while painful to hear, was the first real breakthrough. Mark agreed to step back from pursuing visitation for now and instead focus on his therapy. He's enrolled in a more intensive treatment program to address the
That's good.
underlying issues that led to his abandonment of us 5.
At least he's working on himself, honestly. That is a good thing. That is a majorly good thing. At least he actually recognized he needs to work on himself. Some people obviously don't have that. They can't recognize they need to work on themselves.
Years ago. We've reached a tentative agreement where Mark will continue his individual therapy for at least 6 months before any supervised contact with the twins would be considered. During this time, he'll send letters and small gifts that James and I will review, and if appropriate, give to the twins with age-appropriate explanations about a friend who wants to get to know them. This gives us time to gradually introduce the concept of their biological origins without the trauma of a stranger suddenly claiming to be their real father. As for our family, the initial crisis has passed, but the ripple effects continue. James has struggled with unexpected feelings of insecurity, fearing that Mark's return might somehow threaten his relationship with the boys or with me. We've started marriage counseling to ensure we're supporting each other through this challenging time, and it's actually strengthened our bond. The twins, thankfully, remain largely unaware of the situation's complexity. They know only that Mommy and Daddy have been meeting with someone who knew Mommy before they were born. Their stability and sense of security remain our highest priority. Some family members who initially urged reconciliation for the sake of the children have changed their perspective after seeing Mark's behavior and learning more about the circumstances of his departure. My parents, who were briefly swayed by Mark's remorseful act, have become our staunchest defenders after he let slip some bitterly derogatory comments about me during a conversation they overheard. I've learned some difficult lessons through this ordeal. I've had to accept that not everyone will understand our decisions, no matter how carefully we explain them.
Yeah, some people will never understand. Even some people that listen to this story, obviously, some people just won't get it, cause they won't think of the full picture. They will think, oh, a dad wants to get to know his kids, and that's it. That's all they would understand.
Some people are committed to the idea that biological connections trump all other considerations, and no amount of evidence will change their minds. I've also had to confront my own lingering trauma from Mark's abandonment. During the worst of this crisis, I experienced panic attacks for the first time since the early days after he left. My therapist helped me recognize that while I had built a beautiful new life, I had never fully processed the betrayal.
Yeah, that's what I was. I was about to say that. Never actually went through with it. You never actually went through the emotions. You just moved on. If you just move on and never actually go through the emotion, it's going to come back up one day.
Working through those feelings has been painful but necessary. The most profound realization has been about the nature of parenthood itself. James may not share DNA with our sons, but he is their father in every way that matters. He chose them, day after day, through sleepless nights and stomach bugs, first steps and temper tantrums. Mark may have contributed genetically, but he forfeited his claim to fatherhood when he walked away and stayed away for 5 years. I don't know what the future holds. Perhaps Mark will do the work required to become someone who could positively contribute to the twins' lives in some capacity. Perhaps he'll lose interest again when he realizes that real parenting is challenging and unglamorous. Either way, we'll continue to make decisions based on what's best for our children, not what's easiest or most socially acceptable. For now, we're focusing on strengthening our family bonds and creating stability amid uncertainty. The twins started kindergarten last month, a milestone that James and I celebrated with bittersweet awareness of how quickly they're growing. Every day with them is precious, a gift I don't take for granted after coming so close to having to raise them entirely on my own. If there's one message I hope others take from our story, it's this: family is created through love, commitment, and daily presence. Biology may create a connection, but it's the choice to show up, day after day, that makes someone a parent. And sometimes, the family you build from broken pieces becomes stronger than the one that was originally planned. Thank you again for all your support. Your advice gave me courage when I needed it most, and for that, I'll always be grateful.
I wasted hundreds on curly hair hacks when this is what really worked. I thought I had wavy hair that was just dry and damaged from...
So true, honestly. Family is just what you make it to be. It's who you pick as your family. And DNA is just something you're related to somebody. That's it. You're just related to that person. It doesn't really mean you're like family. when you're growing up, yes, you are family. But when you get older, you can decide for yourself. Like if they're manipulating you or if something else is happening in your life, like something like that, then obviously you get to decide if your biological family is truly your family or not. And that's only for you to decide, obviously. Okay, time to do my outro. My husband of 8 years disappeared with all our money while I was in the hospital giving birth to. And that was Dead Spies. Dead Spies Reddit story react. And I'll see you next time. Which probably be on Wednesday, most likely. Because this will be posted on Monday.